What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the college football edition of the Big Dad Energy Podcast, brought to you by Goose Media Productions. Go to www.goosemediaproductions for all of your digital media needs. I am your host, Nick, aka BDE, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this podcast. Let's go! So, today we're going to go ahead and dive in to the results of my top 12 from last week, right? So I want to kind of take a look to see how everyone performed and then go from there. So first up, we have Oregon. They got the W. They didn't look great at times. Dylan Gabriel threw for 380, 2 touchdowns. That's always good news, but it was Idaho, it was an FCS school. With all the other blowouts that were going on this weekend, I was kind of expecting Oregon to put it on Idaho, but that didn't happen. So it's week 1, like I said last week, with the teams that played week 0. You can't really put a whole lot of stock into what you see week 1, but it is a building block for things to come. So we will definitely have to wait and see on how things turn out for Oregon. And at number 2, we have the University of Texas. Wow, they look great. It's Colorado State, but still, that's an FBS school. Quinn Ewers, 260, 3 touchdowns. We got to see Arch Manning throw a couple passes, get a couple touchdowns in. So all good on the Texas front. They looked outstanding. Tough test this weekend against Michigan. So we'll see how that turns out for them. But right now, the Longhorns seem to be rolling. And at number 3, we have the University of Miami Hurricanes. They look great. Or is Florida really that bad? I'm just saying, I don't call for people's jobs like that, but if anyone's on the hot seat after week 1, it's Billy Napier. So Cam Ward, 385, 3 touchdowns. He just looked like he was tearing apart Florida. The Gators didn't really have that much of a chance, so we shall see. But I'm kind of happy I switched my prediction up from my Florida State to Miami. So that seems to be holding true for the rest of the ACC, how that's coming together. So as long as they keep rolling, we should be good to go on that front. And at number 4, we have Utah. They got the W. They absolutely stomped Southern Utah. Now, that is an FCS school, so you can't really put a whole lot. They did what they should do, right? Cam Rising, 254, 5 touchdowns. I said this last week. He's in his 7th year. He's a grown man playing a bunch of kids right now. So it's going to be hard to give him something that he hasn't seen already. 7 years in college football is a long time. Now, I know some of that's due to injuries. You had the COVID season, so he didn't play all 7 seasons. But just being in a program under the same offensive coordinator, around similar athletes, seeing kids come and go, he's going to get them rolling and get them going in the right direction, which is why I picked them to win the Big 12. And at number 5, University of Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish were in a defensive battle in the get-go. The whole beginning of that game, the whole first half, that was a rowdy environment. 107,000 people in a college stadium is nuts. It's ridiculous. Both teams seemed to be a little affected by the noise. It wasn't so much a A&M advantage. It played to both of their strengths and their demise at times during the beginning of that game. So when the second half kicked in, there was a couple things there that Notre Dame did that kind of get the ball moving. A&M, people are going to say they're not as good as, we thought, or they have a lot more work to do than we thought they did. I'm going to tell you right now, Notre Dame's secondary is elite. Their defensive line played good, but didn't play up to their potential. That A&M defense is legit, and I think that the mixture of Mike Elko and Klein, the offensive coordinator at A&M, with young Connor Wingman that's going to take time to develop, but I do think they're going to be a completely different team offensively at the end of the year than they are right now. So huge props to A&M, huge props to that crowd. Riley Leonard didn't have that great of a game, only threw for 158 yards, but he made the plays that needed to be made when they needed to be made, right? He wasn't going to let them lose that game. And then you have the pair of running backs, Jeremiah Love and Darian Price, both running for huge touchdowns. So Jeremiah Love went 14 for 91 yards and a touchdown. So there was an all-around team effort, and they got out of there with the dub, winning 23-13. It's the kind of what I said with A&M with Notre Dame. Is it Riley Leonard's first year under Mike Denbrock? Mike Denbrock's first year back at Notre Dame. This is going to take some time for the offense to gel and get clicking. Lucky for Notre Dame, outside of their typical, they have a little bit easier of a schedule this year than they normally do. So they're going to have some games where they can test run some things and get some things going in order to get that offense humming the right way. In at number 6, we have the University of Georgia. They got the W. First half was not pretty at all on either side. It was a defensive struggle between Clemson and Georgia for the most part. But that Kirby Smart knows what he's doing at halftime, because the Bulldogs came out firing in the second half, and Clemson didn't have an answer. They couldn't get the ball moving. They couldn't stop Georgia. It was utter domination in the third and fourth quarter of that game. So I know I'm probably going to end up eating some crow for putting them at number 6 in my college football playoff. However, I will say it's only because I don't have them winning the SEC. So Texas looked great, but I did say that I wouldn't be surprised if they flip-flopped the regular season game matchup and the SEC championship. So whoever wins the regular season matchup could very well lose the SEC championship game. So I have it as Texas 2, Georgia 6, and I'm sticking with that. I would not be surprised if it's Georgia 6 to Texas 2. So we'll see what happens. The Bulldogs look great, so I'm excited to see how that season turns out. All right, in at number 7, we have the Ohio State. I cannot believe I'm going to say this. Will Howard didn't look that bad, but he played Akron. It's an FBS school, but it's Akron. No disrespect, LeBron. I know it's your hometown, but I'm not putting a lot of stock into what Ohio State did week 1. But I will say their freshman receiver, Jeremiah Smith, that dude's a baller. He had one of their most ridiculous catches from the weekend. That dude's got blazing speed. So if they give Will Howard the time to throw the football, Jeremiah Smith's probably going to be open, so he'll probably be able to make some plays, which is why I don't have them winning the Big Ten, but I do have them making the playoff at number 7. In number 8, we have Ole Miss. They got the W. I think they scorched Furman from the earth. 76-0 is kind of bad. I remember watching a while back. This was when Mark Richt was the head coach of Georgia. I forgot who they were playing, but it was like the start of the fourth quarter, and then they called a timeout, and the coaches met at midfield with the refs, and they chose to just like not play the rest of the fourth quarter. Furman should have not been allowed to finish that game, but they did. Jackson Dart 418 for 5 touchdowns, but then they have this receiver, Trey Harris, 8 receptions, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's absolutely ridiculous. I don't care who you're playing. Those stat lines are nuts. I did tell y'all, Ole Miss has firepower. Ole Miss is going to be in the playoff. They're not going to win the SEC, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're jockeying for position to get in that SEC championship game. And at number 9, we have Penn State. It was a dominant second quarter versus West Virginia. That was about it. They dropped 20 in the second quarter. That was the margin of victory pretty much right there. Penn State, like I said, they're always good, but they're not great. And it's West Virginia. West Virginia's going through some things. I think they're getting in the right direction. It's going to take some time. They don't have the same athletes that Penn State does. But Drew Aller, 216 for 3 touchdowns. Their receiver and their running back both got over 100 yards each. So it was a good all-around performance to get a good team win. But that's Penn State. In at number 10, Alabama. First win for Kalen DeBoer. They beat Western Kentucky. I mean, not everybody can schedule a strong opponent week 1. However, Jalen Milroe, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. That freshman at Alabama, He's 17 years old. That dude needs to be a senior in high school right now. He needs to be playing on Fridays, not Saturdays. However, he looks like he could be playing on Sundays. 2 receptions, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They couldn't cover him. Now we'll see what happens when he starts matching up against some SEC DBs or some real DBs. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get hit, but at the same time, you can't teach speed. If you're fast, you're fast, right? So I think they do have themselves a dude in that Ryan Williams kid. In at number 11, Clemson. Kind of just touched on that a little bit with Georgia. Huge L. They hung around in the first half, but they just never got anything going offensively. It was pretty pedestrian for Cade Klubnik and the rest of that offense. So I have faith in Dabo to kind of right the ship and get going. The reason why I have them in the playoff is because I have them losing to Miami in the championship game. So we'll see if that holds true. The rest of the ACC is atrocious. You could see that from Florida State losing to Boston College last night. And it was pretty bad. It was 28-13. That's just... I don't know what to do with Florida State right now. They're not it. But so Clemson kind of by default, I think, is going to be on the bubble to sneak into the playoff. But if they do lose another game, it doesn't matter if they're the ACC running up. There'll be another Big Ten team like Michigan. We'll see how they look against Texas this weekend. Or another SEC school sneaking into the playoff in their spot if, the ACC can't get their act together with another team besides Miami. And at number 12, Boise State. Wow. That was a game. Georgia Southern, they both put up a bunch of points. But that running back for Boise State, Ashton Jeanty, 20 carries, 267 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I don't care who you're playing. 6 touchdowns, almost 300 yards on only 20 carries is a ridiculous stat line. So they have Oregon this weekend. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to, go on there, but they got the win, right? So all of my top 12 got a win except for Clemson. I didn't think I was going to go 12 for 12 with my top 12 after week 1. I was close. But because I had 2 teams on there that played each other, we knew that wasn't going to happen. I don't like ties. So, that's where we're at. Talk to me, Goose.
Aflac.
Seriously?
No, I'm not Nick Saban. This isn't an Aflac commercial. It's me, ya boy. I want to know, who do you have winning between Oregon and Boise State? Seems like it's going to be a good game. What about the Texas and Michigan game? And why do you have Texas winning? Because I already know. Do you see any possible upsets this week? And the last question, because I got to get out of here. What games are you going to be watching? Because you already know I'll be watching my dogs. Go Dogs. Sick 'em.
So that's a lot to unpack right there. I got Oregon beating Boise State. I worry for Oregon that's going to be a closer game than it needs to be because it's so early in the season. But I am going to go with the Ducks to pull off the upset against Boise State. Texas and Michigan, I'm not a believer. I think Michigan lost too much. I really do. It took them a little bit to get going week 1. It's going to take everyone a little bit to get going week 1. I have Texas winning that game. That's a noon game. I'll be watching it. It's the Big Ten game of the week, if I remember correctly. So that's going to be a good one. It's going to be exciting. I just think Texas has too much firepower for that one. And then if I have any possible upsets, I was debating on Boise State and Oregon. However, Clemson's playing App State. App State is known for their upsets. We all remember that Michigan game a few years back. So that's definitely on there as upset. But I'm going to go with Arkansas pulling off the upset. They're 7.5-point dogs going to Oklahoma State. And I'm going to pick Arkansas as my upset pick of the week to take down the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So as far as the games I'll be watching, I already said I'll be watching Texas, Michigan if I can. I will definitely be watching the Notre Dame game. Go Irish. It's not going to be a big game for us at all. I expect us to fully dominate. The game may not get my full attention. We'll see what happens. So, and then if I'm awake at that 10 p.m. Eastern time kickoff for Oregon and Boise State, I'm going to be tuning into that one as well. All right. So it's been a great way to kick off the season. I can't wait to see what's ahead for the rest of the season. The first college football committee rankings are on Tuesday, November 5th. Ironically, Election Day. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be paying attention to. This may make me a bad American or a good American. Just depends on who you are. I'm going to be paying attention to the playoff rankings. So we'll see what goes for there. I will be voting, but I will not be paying attention and watching CNN as the election unfolds. They can shoot me a text and let me know who's our new president. But I will be doing a reaction kind of comparison episode based on their first rankings compared to mine. Kind of see where we're at. We'll talk through that. We'll talk through the season, how it's going so far. So I can't wait to get that episode going. And then you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook at Big Dad Energy Pods. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Dad Energy Podcast. Till next time, we'll see you later.